Hi everybody, my name's Todd Atkins. I'm based here in Australia and it's my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Ahrens, two-time nominated scientist, and he's going to fill us full of his wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Dr. Ahrens. Take it over.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. This week I'm in Florida, back in my home office in Florida, so no Bahamas, but I did bring a shirt to remind me where my heart is. So I got actually this shirt came from Hawaii, but it's still tropical. So, you know, we got to really talk about the connection between the brain and the gut. And that's called the brain gut axis. Some people flip it up the way, what side you're talking about. And of course, how do flavonoids fit into that? So I want to share two important pieces of information with you. And I've been allowed to share the screen with you, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we can talk, and the people then can take this down. And of course, on the recording, they'll be able to copy it down and see what I'm talking about. So I think, does that come up really good right now, doesn't it? Yeah, so this is a good publication, Annals of Gastroenterology. That's how you say that. This is the Hellenic Society of Gastroenterology. This means Hellenic. So this is Switzerland, the Switzerland Society of Gastroenterology, which means stomach and guts. And this paper is around 15 years old. So it published in 2016. So it's not new, 15, 16 years old. And it's actually about the same flavonoid products. We were kind of already ahead of this, but here, this is what you want to see. Once you determine that things like flavonoids are important and you understand there is a connection between your stomach and your brain and your stomach, it's good to see other scientists challenge you, and then they do their own research and then come up with information that either confirms what you said or tells you you didn't know what you were talking about. But in this case, this group of researchers determined that yes, there is a gut-brain axis. There is a communication between the brain and your guts, your stomach, your intestines. It's a two-way interaction, two-way street of communication. So I will explain the title here, The Gut-Brain Axis, Interactions Between Enteric, Microbiota, Central and Enteric Nervous Systems. This means they're talking about the interactions, the communication between the bacteria, the biotics that live inside your guts. That's what enteric means. Microbiota, that's the little bugs, the bacteria that live there. The interactions, communication between them and your central nervous system, I think everyone knows what that is. That's your brain and your spinal column, and your enteric nervous systems. That are all the nerves that surround your intestines and your stomach. So this is saying the gut-brain axis, communication between the biota, the biotics that are in your guts, and your central nervous system and your gut nervous system. So at the time that this came out, people just didn't even know about what's now called GBA, gut-brain axis. It's like a highway. Think of axis as like a highway between the two. They were really saying, oh, I don't know if that really exists or not. Well, this paper showed for certain that it exists. They actually took some animals. Most of them were rats and mice, and they had several different types in here. They had just normal mice, normal rats. Then they had rats that they had raised in a completely sterile environment. So they were alive and they appeared to function okay, but they had no biotics, no bacteria inside their stomach and intestines. They were clinically pure, they were sterile. Then they had another group that they gave antibiotics to. And then, so those are the three main types that they had. They had just normal rats, and they had rats that they had raised in a sterile environment, making sure that there was no chance they had any bacteria inside them. And then they had rats that they had shot up with antibiotics. So they were started out normal, and then they killed all the bacteria inside these rats. They also coupled this with some clinical studies of humans. So they didn't raise humans in a sterile environment, but they did look at humans that had had a lot of antibiotics and therefore had killed the bacteria inside their guts. The amazing thing they found was, number one, the rats that were sterile, they had no bacteria inside. They were very calm. They had no stress on a day-to-day basis, but anything at all would set them off. So they were very calm, but they were extremely excitable if anything happened. They had no moderation in their behavior. The more they looked at this, they said, you know, these rats appear to be manic depressives. They go from one extreme to the other. They go from completely calm into extremely excitable. So, okay, that's some evidence. And then the normal rats, well, they behave normally in all things. And then they took the rats that they had shot up with antibiotics, and over a couple of days, they got just as abnormal as the ones that were raised in a pure environment without any bacteria. So they went further than that, and they looked at the humans. You know, they didn't subject them to this type of test, so they just had to find humans that had gone on an antibiotic treatment. They also looked at, based on this rat study, they went and searched for humans that had manic depressive disorder and autistic humans, and they studied their gut to see, well, what kind of microbiota did they have inside their gut, and they found a direct correlation between, do you have any biota in your stomach, and how are you behaving mentally? Now, we've said for a long time, not just me, but people that deal in whole health said that, you know, you are what you eat. And people that had nervous disorders, they had varying levels of autism, even Alzheimer's, manic depressives. We said, you know what, if you get these people on a good diet, in many cases, these issues can resolve themselves, or at least they would get a little better. And everyone laughed at that. And this paper, though, now 15, 16 years ago, it came out and it proved what we were saying. If you have the proper microbiota in your stomach, you have the best chance of functioning the best in society. Actually, emotions and cognitive, right there in the first sentence of this abstract. An abstract is a summary of the paper, and you can read it right here. It says the gut-brain axis consists of that communication between the nervous systems and the body and the nervous system, and it links emotional and cognitive centers of the brain with intestinal functions. Let me let that sink in just a little bit. Here's a paper that showed through scientific study that there is a link between emotional and cognitive parts of your brain and what you eat. That's really what that's saying, intestinal functions. They further found out that it is a two-way street. What you have inside your intestines and your stomach, your guts, influences how your brain acts. There are nerves that come down out of your brain into your spinal column, and they run all along your intestines. And at the end, they have specialized sensors that are actually monitoring what is going on with all these microbes inside you. If the microbes are happy and the microbes are healthy, they send out chemicals and electrical signals to these nerves, and they transmit back to the brain that everything is okay. When there is a disruption in this microbiota, the signals are wrong that get sent, and it actually does affect your emotions and your cognitive centers. It also works the other way. And everyone here on this call knows that a lot of times when we're under stress, we're going through some emotional issue, what do? We eat. We used to think that we ate because eating was comfortable. Eating is soothing. Eating makes us feel good. Eating lowers stress. But that's actually not the case. What is really going on here is that when you eat properly, it reduces stress. So our bodies know this. So it's not just that it's comforting us. There is actually a chemical and electrical reason why we eat when we're under stress. It's not just that it makes us feel good. That, oh, this is a comfort food. You know, we talk about comfort foods. Well, that is a real thing psychologically, but actually there is a physiological reason for this. These foods help restore the microbiota, the bugs in our intestine, the good ones, the friendly bacteria. It helps. Our body is trying to restore that and to get us back on track. And when we don't do that, we suffer emotionally. Emotional and cognitive centers of our brain are directly impressed by the chemical signals that we're sending it. So I used to actually think it was just that the biotics in our gut sent a chemical signal that got into the brain that eventually got around into the bloodstream, that eventually got around into our brain and had an effect that way. No, it's not that simple. It's actually nerves that are going along your guts that have at the end of them sensors that pick these signals up directly. And so doing it, we found out then that people that have issues like Alzheimer's, that are autistic, manic depressive disorder, they have a problem with their microbiota. Now, I am not suggesting that that is the absolute cure-all and cause of these issues, because the body is extremely complex. I'm saying that is at least one leg of the stool, of the three-leg stool, that for us to be balanced. And I have absolutely seen people that I've gone through clinical trials with, when we changed their diets, they absolutely got better. If they were autistic, they went down lower on the scale. They would be children that were uncontrollable, they became controllable because they were getting their microbiota back in check. It may be that there might be a genetic predisposition to have some of these issues, but what you need to do is make it the best you can. So when you are predisposed and you do have even something like schizophrenia, or you have a high level autism on the scale, if you have a good diet, it helps you overcome a lot of these issues, at least the symptoms. So this paper here, actually the one I've sent you, if you go online and look that up, it is a full paper, by the way. It has, let me see, 17 pages, and you're able to go through the whole thing. I mean, yeah, it's tough science, and you might not understand a lot of it, but here is the hard science proving that there is a gut-brain axis. There is communication between our gut and our brain. It's a two-way street. What happens in our brain affects our guts, and what happens in our guts affects our brain. And you know also, and we see that every day in our lives, we have a problem of stress we're dealing with. It upsets our gut because it's sending signals to our stomach and intestines, and those signals in turn go directly to those microbiota, and they go into either overgrowth or undergrowth. The result are issues with our intestines, even like IBS. We also know things like Crohn's disease. If you're under mental stress, Crohn's disease increases. Okay, we used to think, well, that's because when you're stressed, your stomach produces a lot of acid, and that's what causes this trouble. I'm here to tell you today that is not the truth. It's not just because you're stressed and then you get a stomach ache because of extra acid. No, it's because your brain sends signals down specific nerves into your intestines. And those nerves cause the release of other chemicals that directly affect the microbiota. And it's the microbiota that get out of whack and then cause you to have IBS, or at least very mild, at least stomach ache. Well, that's the first thing I wanted to share with you, that there is a gut-brain axis and there is this two-way communication, and it is real. It is real. So I'm going to get off of that one, and I'm going to share another paper with you as soon as I figure out how to do that. There you go. I got that one. And here's the second paper I want to show. Enhancing the cognitive effects of flavonoids with physical activity. Is there a case for the gut microbiome? So this is the other side of the story. And where do flavonoids fit in there? Well, it's been proved that flavonoids have an effect on cognitive functions. In fact, I have told people that if they take flavonoids after the first few days, they will all of a sudden feel relaxed. They'll feel their brain came out of a cloud. There is a relationship between flavonoids and brain activity. Well, how does that exactly work? This paper is brand new. I was surprised I could pull it up so quickly. It was published in February of this year, February of 2022. Usually you can't get a hold of full papers that quick, but here I will tell you, this again is an abstract, and it says that 90% of dietary flavonoids are transformed in your gut into prebiotics. Now, prebiotics are the stuff that feed the bacteria in your stomach. You know, there's probiotics, which are the biotics themselves. The prebiotic is what feeds the biome inside you. So 90% of dietary flavonoids, that includes the ones you take through supplementation, they are transformed into chemicals that these biotics live on. And it changes it, and it says it modulates them. Well, that's okay, that's a fancy word. It changes these bacteria into their diversity, different types, different profiles, different colonies, overgrowth or undergrowth. So those flavonoids directly affect these bugs, healthy, good, friendly bugs inside your stomach. And we just heard from the previous paper that a healthy microbiota is necessary for proper brain function. I'm going to add to the fact that I know that some of the flavonoids go directly to your brain, but most of them are transformed into something that these microbiota can use. You're not using them, these microbiota are using them, and then in turn, they have a positive effect on your brain. Now, the third leg of this stool is exercise. And we say, okay, physical activity. You know, we say, all right, it moves your blood around, you get more oxygen, all that's great. But actually, this paper found out that when you exercise and take flavonoids in your diet, it helps with those flavonoids being broken down into that food for the bacteria. So I don't know if you understand that, so I'm going to repeat that. How does exercise fit in there? Exercise stimulates, it speeds up the breakdown of these flavonoids in your diet into the food that the healthy bacteria can use. So when we say it over and over, diet, exercise, eat flavonoids, those are the three things, and they all work together to feed the bacteria inside your body, and it's those bacteria that are then helping out and communicating with your brain. So I encourage people to look at these two papers, and this is recorded, so if you don't have to copy it down now, just look at it on the recording, and you can see with this title, Enhancing the Cognitive Effects of Flavonoids with Physical Activity. And Google that, and this paper will come up. And then you can read it for yourself. And then if you have some further questions, you can ask me. But this is a remarkable study, because we were trying to explain, how did you have all of these good effects from flavonoids by eating flavonoids? So how can you have all these good effects? Well, it's because some of them go directly into your bloodstream, and they directly manage sugar metabolism, and they directly manage some mental activity. But 90% of them are broken down into molecules that the bacteria can use. And when they get happy, your brain is happy. So I will go back and say, man, we don't cure any diseases. Remember that. This is absolutely supporting the body's function, as proved in these papers. Are you having any issues like this? Do you have IBS? Do you have Crohn's? Are you under emotional stress? Are you autistic? Would you like to at least lower yourself on that chart? And do you have manic depressive disorder? Well, listen, get a good diet and exercise. And these two papers together prove that it absolutely works. That's really my message during this week. I just think it's fantastic. It's no longer are we guessing. You know, every month I learn stuff new all the time. It's astounding, because the things that I thought about 10 and 20 years ago and tried to make an understanding about how they were working, here is the proof that my fellow scientists have come out, and after ridiculing us for a while, say, well, you know what? This actually is true. And again, diet, exercise, and part of that diet, a good diet, low on refined sugars, heavy in flavonoids. I encourage you to supplement yourself with flavonoids. It means better insides, better bacteria, better lifestyle. Well, Todd, that's my message for this week. I mean, those are two blockbuster papers.
Dr. Ahrens, you amaze me every week, just the knowledge that you share with us. I believe this is one of the best calls that I've heard for a little while. Every call that you do is fantastic, but the information you supplied today, everybody needs to see this.
Yes, you no longer have, those people that are interested in the holistic approach, and they say, we are what we eat and food is your medicine. Here is the concrete proof. You can give these papers to anyone, an MD, a researcher, a drug company, and say, okay, what about this work? And so they'll either say, wow, or they'll just try to say, well, I don't know. Well, okay, those guys are always going to say that. But here's the proof. And it goes right back to, we say every single week, diet and exercise, diet and exercise. And in your diet, have an older style diet, 100 or 200 years ago. Do the very best you can to reduce those refined carbohydrates. We've gone into that. Have enough roughage in your diet, enough fiber. Get many flavonoids as you can. Eat, and those flavonoids, what are they? Remember, they come from dark vegetables and fruits. And don't peel things. If you can avoid it, do not peel things. So that's my word, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, thanks very much again for your valuable time, Dr. Ahrens. I'll shut the video off now, and